Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into the incredibly fascinating life of Salah al-Din al-Ayyubi. You probably know him as Saladin. This is a guy who literally reshaped the 12th century Middle East, becoming a figure of absolute, enduring legend in both the Islamic and Western worlds. So you kind of have to ask yourself, how exactly does a Kurdish mercenary, a guy who actually started out preferring quiet scholarly pursuits over warfare, how does he end up uniting a fractured empire and bringing the formidable Crusader states to their knees? Let's dive in and unpack the strategic brilliance behind one of history's absolute heavyweights. Chapter 1: A Fractured World. Okay, to really get Saladin, you have to picture the mid-12th century Middle East. It was deeply, deeply divided. You had the Sunni Abbasids on one side, the Shia Fatimids on the other, and the Crusaders occupying key territories right in the middle. But Saladin, he saw an opportunity. Boom, by 1169, he's appointed Vizier of Egypt. Just 2 years later, he boldly abolishes the Shia Fatimid Caliphate altogether, completely realigning Egypt with the Sunni Abbasids. And he doesn't stop there. He systematically moves through Syria and Mesopotamia, securing Damascus in 1174, conquering Aleppo in 1183, and finally unifying Mosul by 1186. The result? He merged Egypt and Syria into this massive, unified military bloc that effectively surrounded the Crusader states from the north and the south. A total game-changer. Chapter 2: Uniting the Muslim Front. Now, Saladin was incredibly shrewd. He realized pretty quickly that pure military muscle alone just wasn't going to cut it. To hold this vast, diverse, and previously warring territory together, he needed something deeper, an ideological anchor. So he tapped into the Islamic concept of jihad, framing it pragmatically as a unifying statecraft tool. He turned his campaigns into a sacred moral obligation, rather than just a personal land grab. To solidify this, he built Sunni schools, or madrasas, and replaced rival clerics with loyal scholars. He essentially mobilized both popular and elite support by reviving Sunni Islam. You can actually see the intense martial fervor of this era captured in incredible historical artifacts, like this intricate 13th century brass ewer from Mosul depicting armed combatants. And this spirit, it didn't just happen. It was heavily fueled by Saladin's propagandists. They used everything: poetry, public readings, fiery Friday sermons to inspire volunteers for the Holy War. It was a massive, highly mobilized movement. Chapter 3: Hattin and Jerusalem. All right, let's jump to 1187, the real spark for the coming inferno. A Crusader knight named Reynold of Chatillon recklessly breaks a standing truce by attacking a Muslim trade caravan. Saladin is furious, and he vows revenge. He mobilizes his highly trained, fast-moving cavalry, picture the kind of skilled horsemen and archers depicted on these 13th century bronze flasks, and lays siege to Tiberias. His whole goal: to deliberately draw the heavily armored Crusader army out into the baking, arid plains of Galilee in the middle of July. This sets up his defining victory, the Battle of Hattin, and it's basically a masterclass in tactical warfare. He executes this devastating, exact four-step trap. First, cut off all Crusader access to water. Second, encircle them with mobile archers and cavalry. Third, and this is just brutal, set fire to the dry grass, choking the already terribly thirsty knights with heat and smoke. And finally, annihilate the exhausted forces. The aftermath for the Latin kingdom was absolutely catastrophic. I mean, their entire field army was utterly destroyed. King Guy of Lusignan was captured, though famously Saladin mercifully spared his life. Reynold of Chatillon, on the other hand, Saladin personally executed him, staying entirely true to his vow. They even captured the True Cross, which was Christendom's holiest military relic. In one single afternoon, the Crusader leadership was decimated. So suddenly, the path to Jerusalem is wide open. By October 1187, Saladin recaptures the Holy City. But what's fascinating here is the stark contrast with the Crusader capture of the city almost a century earlier in 1099. That original capture was a bloody massacre, thousands killed, holy sites desecrated. Saladin's approach in 1187? A peaceful, negotiated surrender. He set up a ransom system, fiercely protected the Christian holy sites, and even invited Jewish communities who had previously been banned by the Crusaders to return and resettle in the city. A completely different playbook. Chapter 4: The Lionheart Rivalry. Well, as you can imagine, the loss of Jerusalem sent absolute shockwaves through Christendom. The Pope immediately calls for a massive mobilization, kicking off the Third Crusade. And this gives us the ultimate clash of kings.
Saladin entering an intense, multi-year military chess match against King Richard the Lionheart of England, two of history's greatest warriors going head-to-head.
The dynamics of the wars shifted pretty quickly. If we compare Hattin to the Battle of Jaffa in 1192, you see Richard was a very different opponent. He countered Saladin's 21,000-strong army with just about 2,000 Crusaders by using highly disciplined spear and shield walls against Saladin's cavalry. Saladin just couldn't break Richard's defensive lines, and Richard simply didn't have the manpower to take back Jerusalem. It turned into a grueling, exhausting strategic stalemate. But amidst all this, and make no mistake, it was savage, like when Richard executed 2,700 Muslim prisoners at Acre, this bizarre, almost romantic, chivalrous respect blossomed between the two of them. The anecdotes are legendary. During battle, when Richard's horse is killed under him, Saladin literally sends him a fresh war horse. When a Frankish baby is stolen, Saladin uses his own personal funds to buy the child back. Richard even once floated the idea of having his own sister marry Saladin's brother to end the war, though, for the record, she said absolutely no way to that. Finally, exhausted by years of war, and with Richard needing to get back to England, they signed the Treaty of Jaffa on September 2, 1192. It was a very pragmatic 3-year truce. Muslims kept control of Jerusalem, but unarmed Christians were granted safe pilgrimage to the holy sites. And the wildest part of the whole shebang? Despite years of fighting, correspondence, and sending each other gifts, Saladin and Richard never actually met face to face.
Chapter 5: The Enduring Legacy.
Shortly after the Crusaders packed up and left, the physical toll of endless campaigning finally caught up with Saladin. He passed away in Damascus in 1193. And get this, he had given away virtually all his personal wealth to his subjects. There wasn't even enough left to pay for his funeral. His deathbed advice to his son really captures his profound restraint. He said, "Beware of bloodshed. Do not trust in that, for spilled blood never sleeps." It's an incredibly powerful sentiment from a man who spent his entire life at war. Today, Saladin's historical memory is wonderfully layered. He's revered in the East as the supreme unifier, the ultimate mujahid. Over in the West, writers like Sir Walter Scott completely romanticized him as this flawless, chivalric knight. And yet, modern academic revisionists often critique him simply as a highly ambitious warlord and empire builder who spent a lot of his time fighting fellow Muslims. So, that brings us to our final question for you. Based on everything we've talked about today, from the ashes of Hattin to his incredible mercy in Jerusalem, how do you view him? Do you see a ruthless military warlord or a paragon of chivalry and justice? The fact that a single person can be remembered simultaneously as a fierce conqueror and a symbol of honor is exactly why his complex legacy continues to fascinate the world over 8 centuries later.